refuse to do is I refuse to talk about a topic that doesn't interest me. If somebody asks me to come and speak to a group of people about a topic that maybe that they're interested, but I'm not interested in, guess what? You're not going to get a good talk from me because it's not something that motivates me, right? We're talking about motivation. If you want to talk about motivation, you have to tap into the things that actually interest you and get your intellectual curiosity beaming high. Because when you have that, then when you wake up in the morning and you start reading those articles, it's focused. It's not just random knowledge. It's, wow, this is very interesting. This is what I want to use to be able to get to the next step. So when do I decide what kind of doctor I can be? Once you get into medical school and you finish through the basic sciences, then you go into your clinical sciences when you're actually in the hospital working with patients in the different subspecialties. At that point, you start thinking about what type of doctor you want to be. I didn't make my decision until the end of my 3rd year, going into my 4th year. In college, I focused on cardiovascular surgery research. By the end of my 3rd year, I realized that that wasn't the life that I wanted, and that anesthesiology was a perfect fit for me and my interests in terms of the world of medicine. What was the exact career path you chose? What was that specific thing that you did? What was it? What landed you in Stanford?
Yeah.
That landed me at Stanford academically. Oh man, well, you got some time? In a nutshell, this wasn't the path that I chose for myself, right? I got married in medical school, and I thought that my path would be living in Houston, Texas, near my hillbilly friends, and just working hard and becoming, a doctor and living life. But subhanAllah, you never know which way life is going to turn. My wife, also a physician, she is from here in San Jose. And she said, well, I'm really interested in being, close to my family as well. You should at least, take some time and take a look at what the Bay Area has to offer, because you're very interested in technology, you're interested in entrepreneurship, you're interested in medicine. See what comes of it. So tying back from where we were talking about earlier, I got my position at Stanford. Okay, you guys ready for this? Because of my mentor. Okay? When I was in residency at the University of Texas, I was are you guys familiar with MD Anderson Cancer Center? It's the #1 cancer center in the world, between that place and Sloan Kettering in New York. And one of my mentors, also an anesthesiologist, but an ICU doctor, is a faculty member at Stanford. And when I was doing my rotation at MD Anderson, this is about what motivates you as well, trying to tie in everything here. When everybody was sitting back and doing whatever they wanted to do, I was going and seeing all of the patients and doing all of what we call scut work, right? Doing the procedures, seeing the patients, talking to families who had recently lost a loved one, doing the things that other people just simply weren't interested in doing. That was my motivation. Although I did not vocalize, what I wanted, people are noticing. And this has nothing to do with your color, your race, your ethnicity, your religion. It has to do with your work ethic. And what you are willing to put in the time, people notice. As a result of that, they picked me to be, the resident of the year for the ICU. And he said, if you're ever looking to go to California, I have somebody who you can talk to at Stanford. Through that connection, I interviewed at Stanford, and alhamdulillah, I got the job there, and everybody in my family was like, what? Out of the 3 kids we had, you were not the smartest. But alhamdulillah, I'll tell you this also, and I say that half joking. My father, he sent me a message last week. No, this wasn't a message, this was on the phone, okay? And this is that phone call, and he said it, in passing, and I kind of I felt awkward with it, so I just kind of let it, I was like, okay, well, thank you. But he said, we thought that, you were going to choose your own path and you were going to do well, but we didn't think that you were going to overachieve everybody else. Alhamdulillah. When you do things for the sake of achieving and the motivation that you choose to take upon, you will find that the people who you were trying to impress, they will be impressed without you even noticing it. You have to have that drive. You have to have that work ethic, and ultimately the character to help you build the relationships necessary so that you don't go at it alone. You have the network, you have the support, you have a team built around a solid product, and that product is you. And people will want to invest in you, in your development, far more than any kind of materialistic consuming product. They want to see you succeed. They want to see you achieve the goals that you set out to achieve.
I'll just add to that too. Like, I know we also talk about motivation and drive, and a lot of times we're thinking, especially as students, like, what does that mean, right? Like, what is driving me? I don't know. I don't want to, change the world in health and medicine. I don't know if that's like a goal of mine when I'm 16, right? So here's one thing that stood out for me is this was my drive. Like, I had mentioned to you my brother, right? He had done extremely well. So at some level, my drive was competing with my brother. That's okay, right? The second part of my drive was, I really think it came down to just my parents and that family environment that they had built for me, which is that, like, man, my parents have done so much. And if you all stop and think about this, you realize how much your parents have done for you as students. You're like, if you stop and realize all the things that they've done, you're just like, incredible, it's amazing, right? And if there's any way for you to honor that, any way for you to show appreciation for that, show respect to that, right? I mean, your whole life you'll want to be able to do this. Now, like, my parents are older, and I'm just like, what can I do to make them happy? What can I do? And I realized I was doing it the whole time, which was by trying to honor them and show them my appreciation by working really hard at this stuff, and being motivated. So sometimes you think about your motivation. My big part of my motivation was just my parents and the background they came from. Like, we came from another country. We lived in like a 1-bedroom apartment. They like worked 2 jobs. I didn't even see them until like I was asleep, basically. They came home after I fell asleep and stuff, right? My brother and my sister would take care of me coming home from school, from elementary school and stuff. And that structure, like, you can't replace that. So if you're looking to find motivation, you don't have to look anywhere other than right next to you. Like, your parents can be that motivation for you all the time, and I encourage you to build that motivation in you and realize all the things they've done for you. So one question here is, I think I'm reading a couple questions about grades. For this one question in particular, is it okay to have a couple of B's in high school? Will it affect you in getting into college? So really what this question is asking is, like, can my grades go down a little bit, and what's the effect on my college, right? This question in some ways is the same setup for every other question, like, can I do this extracurricular? Should I do this project? Should I, do this or that? It's all about time, and it's all about ROI, right? ROI is return on investment. So, for example, the return on investment between going for an A versus getting a B in that really hard class, if it's going to take you 5 hours a week to get between a B and an A in that class, is it really worth getting that extra 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week? Maybe that 5 to 10 hours a week is better suited for a project that you're working on that will serve as a really good a portfolio project, or like a website you're building, or something that you're doing that will actually differentiate you, or a sport that you're playing really well. By the way, at like all these top tier schools, all their sports teams kind of like, they're not that great, except for Stanford. Stanford's pretty good. But like at MIT and Harvard, the sports teams aren't that great. So if you're like really good at sports and you're decently smart, you will like have a really good shot at getting in, by the way. So just so you know, like, sports isn't a bad route to go if you're pretty good at it. You want to get your kids through that. I know I want my kids to be like a soccer superstar at some point. That's what I want to do for them. But basically the point here is you need to think of all these questions in terms of the time investment. The time investment, you're going to start thinking, all right, is it worth me studying for hours and hours and hours to get my 2000 SAT score up to 2200? Is it worth it? And so you'll start asking, as you start researching more online and reading more online, you'll start getting a feel for that. What is that time investment? I can't tell you that answer. It depends on the rest of your scenario, the rest of your application, the rest of your layout, right? It's going to be all circumstantial. but you have to start thinking about things in terms of the return on investment in time. Everything I feel in life, I have looked in that framework, and it's been very helpful. Is that some things you're immediately could, think, oh, I need to get A's, I need to get A's, I need to get a high SAT score, I need to get a high SAT score. It's not about that necessarily. It's about what's that high return on investment. And I'm telling you now, more than ever, every year this goes by, people are swinging more towards the side of, I want to see kids that are doing cool stuff. I want to see kids that are doing cool stuff. I don't want to see, I think like 20 or 30 kids around the country are getting like 2400s and stuff, and they're not getting into the best schools. My best friend, he got 2400 SAT, he got rejected from like Harvard and Princeton. Right? It doesn't mean that much compared to, it's not a magic formula. It's about being like super different and super, fits in. He fit really well into the culture at MIT because he was super like entrepreneurial, very techy. That wouldn't have fit so well at Harvard and Princeton, right? So you gotta get a feel for those things too at the college, right? What is the feel for that college? What are they looking for? I remember I spent, when nobody else was doing this in my school, I spent a week at MIT. I took a week off of school and I said, you know what, this is my college admissions. This is way more important than whatever I'm learning in these classes right now. I'll make it up. It's the beginning of the semester, right? It was early September. I went to MIT, spent a week there while I was a senior in high school, and I just learn from kids. They had a program where you could come and stay with a student and stuff like this. You could find anyone, MSA or whatever. You could find people to hang out with, right? And I went to classes there. I talked to the admissions office. I talked to the admissions counselor. See, that's a huge difference, right? When you say, I'm worth that admissions counselor's hour of time. I demanded that time from him. I emailed him, I pushed it from him. I got that hour and I sat with him and I said, tell me what's the culture at MIT? What do you guys look for? What's the special thing that's really stand out? And the big thing that was standing out was that entrepreneurial thing. They like makers. They like people that build, So I said, try and build myself that way and try and present my application that way. If I went to Harvard and did the same thing, it would have been different. If I went to Princeton, I would have gotten different answers, right? So you need to invest that time. Again, ROI. The ROI for me going and spending a week at MIT was way more worth it than that time I was going to spend in classes doing the same old, right? So think about this stuff. Think about what are some extra steps you can take and where's the time investment worth it? So I think that answers a couple of those great questions. Last question, I will have a couple more here. What can we expect on campus as a Muslim student? And we have until 2:30, right? So I don't want to take over time. What can we expect on campus as a Muslim student? I'll tell you, again, I have a long story about this, but to be short, the advice that my dad gave me the minute I got on ticket to MIT, it was a 8-hour drive up to MIT. We spent 7 of the 8 hours talking about my brother getting married, right? And then this last half an hour, I'm like, guys, I'm leaving forever. Are we going to talk about my life or what? And he's like, we've taught you everything you need to know. Everything you need to know over these last 18 years. My dad was like, the one thing I need you to know is make the right friends on campus. Just everything is about that, right? And again, making better friends than you, right? So that being a Muslim on campus isn't hard, it's not difficult, it's not, I don't care what environment you're in, whether you're in the deep south or if you're in Northeast schools. Make friends with the Muslim people, make friends with the non-Muslim people that are religious too. One of my best friends from college was a Christian, one of those legit Christians. The ones that are like actual Christians, So that speaks a testament. I made a lot of friends with the Jewish community there too, and we started breaking down, barriers between the Jewish community and Muslim community. That environment can be, as much as you put into it, that's how good it can be. Me and my year, I asked upperclassmen from my years, they said, you guys did something very special, which is that you were able to break the proximity barrier between everyone. We got all the Muslims to start living in the same dorm, the same area, eating, at the same dining hall and overlapping. That environment can be great, and it's the most formative, transformative years of your life, the best friendships you'll ever make in your life. I feel you should invest a lot in trying to get that good environment. And when I went to visit MIT, I saw that. I saw that there's no bougie, there's no elitism there. The Muslims there are down to earth. The guy next to me can be like the Prince of Saudi for all I know, and he's like the coolest guy, right? And so that environment I really liked. So feel that out in the communities and stuff. And I know it's hard. I know we have a whole other conversation about MSAs and campus environments and stuff. But you can expect that the Muslims around you will find people that are better than you in some ways and worse than you in some ways. Always try and strive to make friends with the people that are better than you. Even if they're not fun, even if they're not cool, even if they're not whatever, try to be friends with the people that are better than you always. That's my opinion with that. Do you want to take this one?
What is this? So how do you allocate time for the activities and studies? We touched upon this a little bit on utilizing your time. If you ever find yourself saying, I don't have enough time, well, I can use myself as an example for this. In college, I always thought I didn't have enough time. But then when I actually looked at how I was utilizing it, studying, I would find that hours upon hours would just dwindle away, and I hadn't really achieved any of the goals that I set out for the day. Only in my mind did I think that I was putting the time in because the time had passed by, but I hadn't really achieved much. So it's quality, not quantity. Now, if you translate that to a point now where someone can say, well, how are you able to be a full-time physician, right, working 50 hours a week, plus working on bioventures, plus working on investment situations, whatever it is that you're working on, plus entrepreneurship, how do you find the time to do that? If you allocate your time appropriately, set particular deadlines for yourself mentally, make sure that the time that you put in is quality time, right? Not the quantity. What am I going to get out of, this particular task? And if I get the 2 or 3 pearls that I need out of it, then you can go ahead and move on and know that you achieved something with that and move on to the next thing. Then you'll find that you're able to fill your time, adequately and achieve the goals that you want to do, right? Another thing that's really important is to take time for reflection, take time for activities, extracurricular activities like whether it's sports or exercise. A healthy body leads to a healthy mind, right? So if you're able to do those things, the time that's spent on actually trying to get things done for whatever it is that you're trying to do, you'll be able to do that more effectively if you're physically healthy as well. Please tell me more about International Medical College. With this specific question, you can come to me afterwards, and it's a very specific question. We need speech and debate classes for middle and elementary school kids in the mosque. I agree. It's hard to find teachers. The MCA is one of the most cutting edge, communities in all of America, and I'd say around the world. If it's something that means, light bulb just went off in my head. If it's something that if it's something that means something to you, that you care about, that you want to see it done, don't wait for somebody else to do it. If you think that the speech and debate needs to happen, then you need to go and talk to whoever is running these things and say, we need this done. If they say, we don't have anybody to do it, then say, I'll do it, right? And if you don't know how to do it, then you can recruit somebody who does. Because if you wait for somebody else to do it, it'll never get done. But if you take the initiative, then you know at least that your voice is being heard because you are taking that initiative for it to be done. Okay? How long is medical school? Too long. How long is the entire process?
I cannot, that was the perfect answer, man. I notice that all the time in communities. It's like, oh, our community doesn't do this, our community doesn't do that. Yo, go do it. Go be the person that makes it. You can have 2 people come, you can have 10 people come, you can have 100 people come. It doesn't matter. Get just a group of people that want to do something and just make it happen. And it'll grow. If you're doing a good job, people always worry about, oh, we should make an organization, a president, a bureaucracy, this and this. Just do cool stuff, guys. Just do cool stuff. That's a great lesson to take home if I can tell you. Do cool stuff. Do cool stuff. That's a good take home lesson. And yeah, I could spend a whole nother workshop talking to you guys about how to balance your time and manage your schedules and stuff. Then 99% of you don't even have a schedule, let's be real. 99% of you don't follow a calendar, don't follow a task list. None of you do that for the most part, right? We try to do that.
I gotta say, hold on. We're talking about do cool stuff. Look at Hiba over here. MashaAllah. She's rocking the camera. She asked me a question. She put a question on here. This is taking the initiative. I don't know who's responsible for Hiba, but round of applause for her. MashaAllah. Now I embarrass you. She's like, I'm not touching that camera.
There's lots of techniques online. I think you guys should, this is weird, but get an account for Medium, make a Medium account, and start reading articles on Medium. A Medium feed is way more useful than a Facebook feed. I'll tell you that right now. I read things about, there's always things about productivity techniques, there's always things about reflection. I really like this point about reflecting. Every week, I spend at least half an hour reflecting on the week. It's critical. And that's almost Islamic tradition type stuff, right? Where we spend time reflecting on our lives. That's so important. So you should do it every week. You should do it at the end of the week and say, how was my week? Is that how I want to live my life? Yes or no, right? And so you'll get better. And the thing is not about having it right immediately. You're thinking oh, I need to do this. Your life is going to change. It's all going to fluctuate. You need to learn how to adapt to changing your schedule. Your schedule is constantly going to change, right? So be very cautious and aware in that. And you've answered this, right?
Well, I didn't really answer.
Okay, go ahead.
So how long is medical school? The process of medical school is 4 years. Depending on what subspecialty you choose to practice, the scope of the time after you graduate from medical school and you get your medical doctorate degree can span anywhere from 3 to 11 years. Okay? 3 if you do family medicine.